What's good, everyone? Matt here from UK Nets Fans, and I'm joined, as ever, by Cammy Anderson for another episode of BK UK, the first one of 2022. Welcome back. We are the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. Aiden is away from the squad for personal reasons, as he's actually stateside this week. So we are going to hopefully welcome him back into the team, and he'll ramp up ready for his return. Today is Tuesday, the 11th of January, and today it's going to be a little bit of a different pod today. All the stuff that's been going on in the near month break we've taken since we last recorded, given some positives and unfortunately some negatives from the last 11 or so games, and much more as ever. Before we crack in, make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at UK Nets Fans. The pod itself on Twitter at BK2UK Pod, and check us out on YouTube where you can watch all of our episodes back. You can also watch us on Twitch at twitch.tv/UKNetsFans. You can join in the chat as we're recording, as we're going live, and you can join in the conversation. But Cammy, there's only really one place to start, isn't there? And that is the return of Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, I mean, this really isn't something I was expecting us to be talking about upon our return. Obviously, on the podcast prior to us breaking off for a little bit of a Christmas break, it really didn't seem like Kyrie was going to be back. But here we are. He's back. He's played some games, and it's been confirmed he's going to be playing some road games now. So I think a lot of this decision is down to the fact that we got absolutely ravaged by COVID, and it's seen the Nets back down. Now, I'd initially kind of said I wouldn't be too happy if the Nets did. They'd made a really strong stance about it, and if the going got tough, they should have stuck with things. But obviously, for whatever reason, they've decided to go back on that. Kyrie's back, and looks like the same Kyrie. Still some ramping up to do, maybe. But, I mean, there's 2 games so far, 22 points in each of them. Quite happy with those showings. It's really exactly what we need from him as a minimum. There's been games already this season, and will be games further on in the season where we need that kind of extra someone delivering upwards of 20 a night. And this is something that it goes without saying Kyrie's entirely capable of. It helps us out hugely, and I want to include the just his teammates in that as well. Obviously, with Kyrie out, we've been relying on a lot of guys, Patty Mills especially, just to kind of deliver and make up that difference in points that a guy like Kyrie Irving would give you, and the assists and just kind of everything else. We're kind of relying on 3 or 4 guys to come together and do that, whereas now we've got Kai back, albeit only for road games. It'll be interesting to see how that affects maybe the dynamic of the team, both because he's in, so one of these guys, or maybe a guy or two who'd maybe team up in the starting 5 or when they come off the bench to make up these points. It'll be interesting to see how the kind of rotations are affected in that regard. With a lot of away games coming up, thankfully, so we'll get to see a lot of Kyrie. This is probably the best case scenario for us. He can really, really get back into the swing of things. It's not like he's back, but he can't play for 20 games because we're on some mad home streak. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing just Kyrie play regularly, and hopefully can help us break out of our current slump, which is, since we stopped podding, we have kind of bottled things. It's not you're kind of shrugging there, and we've kind of joked in the Twitter chat that it's maybe we're the good luck charm after all. But yeah, Kyrie coming back is massive for the Nets. We'll finally get to see that big 3 hopefully play a lot more regularly now. And who knows, Kyrie's managed to come back. The Nets had a change of heart. Is Kyrie maybe going to have a change of heart regarding the vax? Are we going to see Kyrie playing home games? I mean, only time will tell, but I think this goes to show that we can't really rule anything out. We were so close to ruling it out. We'd had him traded to here, there and everywhere, but he's back, and yeah, I'm delighted. Can't wait to just see more of him.
Absolutely. I mean, I was the first person on Twitter to be like, just mourning the loss of him. Just like, everyone, make your peace. We are not going to just get used to the fact that we're probably not going to see Kyrie back in a Nets jersey. I remember talking on an old pod that the most likely scenario to see Kyrie back would be the Nets changing their mind. And I think that's just because Kyrie's so strong-willed, and no one's going to tell him what to do. He's his own man. He marches to the beat of his own drum, however you want to call it, however you want to sort of phrase it. I don't see him ever sort of getting vaxxed because the team had frozen him out. So the only sort of course of action would have been for Sean Marks to turn around and go, okay, we said that he wasn't going to come play until he's a full-time participant, but things change. COVID had absolutely ravaged this team, something we're going to go on to and talk about a little bit later on, but it's getting to the point where you've got a guy who averaged 27 points last season on 50, 40, 90 splits, and if you can play him, you're gonna play him, even if it's every other game. You quite rightly say that. I think it's something crazy like 12 or 13 of the next 18 games are road games. So as you quite rightly say, he's going to have a lot of time to get his legs back underneath him, get back into the swing of things. And hopefully what I've kind of said is my one wish for this is that he's around the team so much and he's playing basketball so much that he says to himself, you know what, I have kind of missed this. I miss being around the lads. I miss playing basketball in front of the fans. I miss hooping because he's a basketball sort of junkie at the end of the day. He loves the game. So my biggest wish is that he kind of has this little taster of a return to action. He decides himself, because he's only going to change his own mind. No one else is going to change it for him. That he kind of goes, you know what? Okay, I think I'll take the vaccine. And I'll rejoin the team and we can play home games and let's go get this championship. But I found it interesting that I heard Iron Eagle from the Yes Network say in an interview somewhere, I'm forgetting where the interview was, but he said that the Nets sort of front office or the Nets organization is really working hard with the city to get Kyrie playing home games somehow. That's all I said. I hadn't read the full interview, but that was basically what he took from it. So whether or not, this is pure speculation, whether or not, they're talking to the new mayor again, even though he's kind of said that he's sticking to his guns and people have got to get jabbed. Even the rich and famous, even sports stars need to get jabbed to enter these places. Maybe that's something they, can keep campaigning for. It is tricky because he should, just get the vaccination because that's what's best for everyone. But that's, digging up old ground that we've been that has been well trodden. But yeah, great to see Kyrie back. I know on his debut he was kind of a bit quiet, didn't take any threes, but the way he gets to that mid-range pick and pop, he's still quick as anything. He's absolute greased lightning, so he can still get to his spots and he's still looking as smooth as ever. So it's only a good thing that Kyrie is back. As you quite rightly say, fingers crossed he can get some minutes with the other big three and get some minutes with everybody else. But yeah, it's great to have Kyrie back with little ramp up. Although obviously say that there's going to be more to come. He is going to get better as he gets more experience back in there. But as we kind of said, COVID had, obviously in the last month or so, the big news has been that COVID health and safety protocols has absolutely wiped the Nets out this past year, which means, fortunately, a bit of run for our rookies. What have you made about the next generation of Nets superstars?
It's been exciting, obviously, to see these guys actually part of the team and are actual players. Obviously, there's a few 10 days, and I mean, for a week or so, the NBA was kind of like when you're 5 or 6 years into 2K and it's just full of made-up players, and it's like you didn't know who half the boys were. They were coming in on 10-day contracts across the league and never seen them again. Obviously, we had several from last season as well. Can barely recall any of them. That was largely similar to those that we had. But yeah, the rookies, I think we all knew Cam Thomas's capabilities based on his early showings in a Nets uniform and obviously his stints in the G League with the Long Island Nets. But yeah, other young guns have stepped up as well, and it's great to see. I don't think I was expecting to see much from them this season, such as the quality of our team, but it's good to know we've got these guys that can call upon. And the future looks quite bright should we keep a hold of them, although I do find that unlikely given, like we've said on numerous occasions, we've kind of traded away all the picks. We've not got many assets, but an asset that's always valuable as a young player, especially to teams rebuilding. So one of these guys might actually help us out, maybe not on the court, but could help us off the court in a trade. Cam Thomas had the real standout moment, which I'll get on to later, but David Duke had a a good showing against the Magic. He had 18 points there. Daron Sharp was good in our most recent match against the Blazers with 14 points and 7 boards. And Kessler Edwards also had that really good performance against Toronto, where we were also absolutely riddled with COVID and had next to nobody available. He was at 44 minutes or something he played. And yeah, just a really impressive performance all round, kind of from these guys. Kind of peaks and troughs, kind of to be expected of these young guys. But yeah, like I say, they've all certainly had their moments, but no moment tops Cam Thomas's overtime winner against the Spurs. Now, this shot was originally going to be KD's. The ball was in his hands to sink that game winner, and I have every faith that he would have done that. But KD was smart enough to realise when he was, 2-3 guys marked, Cam Thomas as well, equally smart to just kind of peel away and go, right, I've got a free kind of run towards the basket here, and then put the floater up, and then the rest, as you say, is history. And it was just as cold as you like. He walked off. It wasn't some crazy running around the court celebration, just walked off just like it was another shot for him. And that's what we've kind of spoken about, his maturity and just his lack of any kind of emotion. And yeah, that was, he kind of sunk that shot and just celebrated it like it was an everyday occurrence for him. And I mean, that says a lot about him as a player. I think just the fact he got the shot in the first place certainly says a lot about what KD thinks of him, because yeah, KD could easily take that glory himself, but has passed that to the young guy to kind of have that moment, if you like. And then it says a lot for the Nets organisation and how they value Cam as well, because let's be honest, there's going to have been conversations and kind of training in recent weeks where we get into these situations at end game, pass the ball to KD, pass it to Harden, and then obviously now Kyrie will be that kind of other option. But obviously Cam Thomas's name's been brought up in this conversation, because you don't just pass the ball to anyone in these situations. That there was 3 other guys on the court other than KD and Cam Thomas, but the ball went to Cam Thomas. So to me, that certainly says a lot about that, and it bodes well for Cam Thomas's future as a Net. But yeah, just great to kind of see all these young guys step up. We needed them to in our kind of hour of need with so many out with COVID. And yeah, like you say, that it's good. I don't know anyone who could really say it was a negative to get to see these guys play so much. It's always good to see some of your own play. So yeah, hopefully it's not a case where we've got to play them out of necessity again, kind of like we have recently, and it's more we can play these guys because they're genuinely good enough to play, like they've kind of proven in stints. But yeah, really happy with what I've seen from these guys over the last kind of few weeks.
Yeah, it's nice. Obviously, Cam Thomas is going to get all the plaudits and all the headlines. And yeah, that game winner was just beautiful. It's just like you touched on him. The guy just doesn't show emotion, and I just think that's hilarious. Obviously, if you're a rookie in this league, you finally made it to the NBA. You're living in Brooklyn. You've got KD, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving on your team. You're being coached by Steve Nash. So you've just like won the absolute lottery in terms of like hoop dreams and all this kind of stuff. But Cam Thomas, after sinking a game winner and the crowd going mental, is just cold as ice, just absolutely deadpan. And I love that. But so he's going to get obviously the main kind of plaudits. But I do want to give a big shout out to our other 3 rookies, David Duke Jr., Kessler Edwards, and Daron Sharp, because I think they've all come in, not really had as big an impact as Cam has had. Obviously, David Duke Jr. has had a couple of starts, which has been a bit of a shock as Steve Nash has been kind of tweaking the rotations. But I like what I've seen. I've pulled up some stats on the new guys. This is per 100 possessions, obviously, because they get such sporadic minutes. It's a bit weird to kind of look at their season totals, because Cam Thomas is, averaging 7 points a game, but, we know he's capable of scoring so much more. Like if you look at per 100 possessions, Cam Thomas is scoring something like 20 points, 7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, which is absolutely wicked for a guy that everyone says is just a scorer. Obviously took him, 27th overall. That's incredible return on investment. David Duke Jr. as well has been, a really, really good rebounder for in that guard position. Again, 14 points per 100 possessions. Kessler Edwards, 16 points per 100 possessions. Again, crashes the boards like crazy, averaging 11 rebounds. And I think he's also been shooting, where are we? So he's 41% from free, Kessler Edwards. And to have a big guy that crashes the board and shoots threes, how long have Nets fans been crying out for someone like that? I know he's only young, but he's got so much room to develop there. It's just so good to have that as, as the bottom of your bench is a guy who's putting up those kind of numbers and showing those flashes of brilliance, really, in a team where, like you say, like every play is every conceivable situation is going to be drawn up for Kevin Durant or James Harden or now Kyrie Irving. But obviously, with those guys getting tired, those guys getting doubled. No Kyrie, now no Joe. With Patty Mills sort of blowing hot and cold a little bit. Obviously, his incredible start to the season that he had, he's now sort of leveled off a little bit. Jevon Carter's been obviously a non-factor now. Paul Millsap is now a non-factor on this roster. So the young guys are really getting an opportunity to step up and see what they can do. The Nets forever have been that next man up team. So it really does fit that ethos and that way of thinking that, when your number gets called, you best deliver. And I think those guys have really, really delivered on what's been advertised. And it's nice to have young talent spread across the positions as well. So obviously you've got David Duke Jr., who I think is obviously, you got Cam and David Duke Jr., who are both guards. You got Kessler Edwards and Daron Sharp. We'd probably put more as forwards, as big men. So it's just nice to have that kind of spread, as you quite rightly say. We ain't got any draft picks for the next few years after that James Harden trade. So it's nice that we've kind of almost got a few drafts worth of talent in one hit, which is incredibly exciting. So yeah, big shout out to the rookies. I remember the first game was, I think we had 10 people have been out for COVID at once. I think that was when at the height of, your Langston Galloways and your James Ennis the Thirds joining this team for however long. We had 10 people out, but I remember there was a certain point where there was a game against Toronto, literally just after we stopped recording for the year, and it was literally just KD, who was 50-50 because he had a bad foot or a bad ankle or some sort of nagging injury that he was dealing with. So he could have said, I'm not playing, and then the Nets forfeited the game because I didn't have enough bodies to put, on the floor. But KD, muscled up and said, nope, I'm playing and I'm bringing all these rookies with me. And the Nets got the win. And that was a huge part of the season for me, or it was at that time. I think that was an overtime win as well, 131 to 129. So just a huge gutsy performance and I thought that was almost like the kickoff of this Nets organization trusts the young guys, and KD trusts the young guys, which there's going to be nothing that will give you more confidence than it being your first year in the league. And, one of the arguably the greatest players of all time just comes up, taps you on the shoulder and go, you've got this. I think you're great. Let's go out and win a basketball game. I believe in you. So yeah, one of the huge positives from this last month, has been the development of these rookies and what fantastic additions to this roster they've been. Talking about fantastic additions to this roster, I think it's safe to say that everyone's kind of new favorite low-key net, Deandre Bembry, finally had his deal guaranteed. It was an unguaranteed deal that he had, but since we last recorded, that has been fully guaranteed. Cammy, give me your thoughts on Deandre Bembry.
Sure. I'm really happy for DeAndre. None of us expected much from him ahead of the season. And in fact, I think every single one of us here and most of the guys in UK Nets fans Discord expected him to be cut before the ball was even bounced. Wasn't a guy that any of us were really all that familiar with. Kind of came in as he's quite good defensively, and then that was kind of it. But yeah, I mean, he's fully deserving of his deal being guaranteed. Sean Marks has done it again. He's kind of found one of these diamonds in the rough. And whilst Bruce Brown's kind of fallen off completely and hasn't been that guy that he was last season, I feel like DeAndre Bembry's kind of stepped up and brought that energy, kind of been that defensive pest that you kind of need in your team. And yeah, he isn't a player whose numbers will necessarily always jump off the page to you, but he gives his absolute all. And sometimes that's what you kind of need in a team like this, especially if we can just have a guy defending while we've got KD, Harden, Kyrie, Patty Mills, Joe kind of doing their thing. That's great. We don't really need Deandre to be doing anything offensively. So yeah, whoever it may be, he's not really someone who shies away from his defensive matchups. He'll quite happily take on anyone, which is, yeah, a lot of guys maybe would shy away. Someone would go, right, you're marking KD, and it's, nah, I don't really fancy that. But you could put him on anyone and he'd go, right, I'm giving this my all. I might get burnt a few times, but I'm going to do it. This is my team. And yes, it's a fantastic attitude that he's displayed, and you can absolutely understand why that deal has now been fully guaranteed. And I mean, whether he stays with us beyond the season or not, I don't know, but I'm certain that he's going to get paid a fair whack more than he's getting paid by us at the moment. He's kind of taken this opportunity to play with some of the kind of league's premier stars, and yeah, really took an advantage of it. And it looks like he's going to benefit, whether it be with us or after. But whilst with us, it could well be a championship at the end of the season. So yeah, massively happy for Deandre. And it's just, yeah, like I say, Sean Marks just seems to always do it, and I'm really looking forward already to see who next year's one is going to be, because I just don't know how he does it.
Yeah, he's Sean Marks is very, very good at this. I love the comparison you made with Bruce Brown as well, because he is that weirdly small guy that will get you your rebounds and those kind of hustle plays as well. I was just looking through his stats, and although he's only averaging sort of 6 points a game, just a fraction under, he's incredibly efficient with his shooting. So he doesn't, as you say, he doesn't offer like loads of sort of on the offensive end production wise, but the points he does score, it feels like they're all kind of off a steal or a tip, and it's like a breakaway. He loves a reverse dunk in transition as well, which I'm always there for that. But yeah, amazing. Really, really just likable kind of guy. Sort of the kind of player that you do want on your team. Gets his rebounds, does all the dirty work, does the kind of the stuff that doesn't really show up on the box score. And again, he's just that energy guy. He's just, jumping around all over the place. So really, really good to see Bruce Brown, to see Deandre Bembry get that deal. And as you say, what the future holds, we do not know. But I, for one, am very, very happy that he's here with us. I think he is one of my favorite acquisitions from last year. Obviously, Patty Mills probably being the top one, and then to me, it's between him and LaMarcus Aldridge. If you count him as a new player, and obviously he played for us last season. It's those 5 games, but it's just been really, really nice to see him play, because I think he's quite a unique player. And he's one of those players that unless you watch all the Nets games, you're not really going to know who he is or what he does and that kind of stuff. But he's really, really kind of got himself as a fan favorite, which is always good to see. And talking of fan favorites, actually, the All-Star votes are in. Obviously, it's not quite All-Star season yet, but All-Star voting has opened. And 4 Nets made the first round of sort of report back that the NBA does with the first round of fan voting. KD, Harden were obviously going to be locks. How do you feel about Kyrie being an All-Star or getting voted in by the fans to All-Star, having not even played a game yet? And the surprise addition of, or surprise to me at least, might not be to you, of LaMarcus Aldridge on the All-Star list.
I think, like you say, KD and Harden are locks to kind of go all the way and play in that All-Star game. Kyrie's name, I think that's purely a marketing move. Kyrie, I mean, I don't know when the vote closes. He could do some absolute madness. But yeah, ultimately, the All-Star game doesn't mean much, at least not to me. It's not a game that I'm going to lose sleep over if I don't watch or if Nets aren't in it. It's just another game for these guys to play. It's kind of become a bit of a gimmick in recent years. They're running up the score, trying out new rules. It's who can do the fanciest dunks, fanciest passes. There's nothing there, so I can understand why Kyrie's maybe in from that, because they're kind of trying to showcase the best talent. They let the guys maybe do their thing. If there's a kind of, what was it Steph and Dame Lillard who are having the 3-point shooting competition during the game, shooting from like the half court and stuff. So you can imagine if Kyrie's voted in, it'd be him trying to outhandle a really good ball handler in the opposition team. LaMarcus Aldridge, maybe a bit of a surprise to me. I can understand there's a lot of people really happy to see him back. I can't see him making the final cut, but nice to see him just kind of recognised again. I don't think he would have been expecting to be in with a shout of an all-star position, 9 months ago when he was kind of ruled out for medical reasons. So, it's fantastic that that's kind of there. But, I think, KD and Harden locks. Kyrie might just appear for the fans love him kind of thing. And then Aldridge, I don't think he'll be there, but he can be an all-star in our hearts.
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to talk about all-star in our hearts, I'm just trying to get up to see what position he finished at in the all-star fan voting. But Jarrett Allen has made it onto the fan vote, playing for this resurgent Cleveland team, which is amazing. And I'm going to put all that down to him being able to develop in the Nets. And we've always been great at developing players, and unfortunately not being able to afford them because we've got 3 max players and no money for anyone else. But I think you'll probably be exactly the same as me in just wishing in nothing but the best. And it's just great to see Jarrett Allen also getting some love, which is all good. Whether or not he'll be there on All-Star Day, I do not know. I think he's probably more likely to be there than LaMarcus Aldridge, because I know that the media and other GMs kind of get a vote as well, which I'm not quite up on how it's weighted. But I still think that it's good to see. Good to see the Fro get an All-Star nod anyway. So that'll do us for the Nets news. And this is normally the part of the show where we kind of do the game recaps from the time we've missed. Obviously, we've missed 11, 12 games. So I love podding. I know you guys will love listening to me and Cammy, but we'd be here for a couple of hours going through in depth. So what we've done, just to bring it on round again and keep this rolling, is to look at the positives and the not so positives from the last month. We alluded to it at the top of the show, is since we stopped podding, the Nets are a game above 500. Having been top of the East, an incredible record, all that kind of stuff. Now we've slipped to second, which obviously in the grand scheme of things isn't a disaster in the middle of January. But what do you reckon, Cammy? Start on the negatives so we can end on the positives, I think. How does that sound?
That sounds good to me. Yeah, let's go for that.
Sweet. So the first negative I've got down is just an embarrassing loss to the Magic and not being able to beat the big teams either. Why can't we see what do you think's contributed to this this losing slump that we've been on?
I mean, the whole kind of COVID situation with boys being in and out probably hasn't helped a lot, but I think it's a case. I'm a strong believer in all sports that teams will have a good winning run and they'll have a losing run during the season. I'm fairly confident that this is just our equivalent of our losing run. It's kind of come at, I don't think a good time's the word, because like you say, we've slipped to second. It's not the end of the world, but it's only January. There's time to fix this slump. There's going to be teams who have slumps later on, and so long as we can stay just about in touch, we'll take advantage of that because we'll have had our slump by then. It's just one of those things that happens. It's highly infuriating. Obviously, losing to the Magic, who are one of the worst teams in the league, but then being unable to beat this kind of Sixers and Bucks guys who are at the kind of top of the East, guys who we could end up facing in the playoffs at some stage. It's just one of those things. I'm not wanting to get too concerned about it given the circumstances that we've had lately. If it kind of goes on much longer, maybe we'll be a bit worried. It's 4 or 5 losses in our last 6 or 7. It's quite grim reading there, but then when you look a wee bit deeper, see who we've been missing, the kind of changes, obviously Kyrie coming back, and then KD's been out, Harden, and there's been a lot going on, and I think a lot of teams would probably struggle with similar circumstances, so it's not something that I'm overly worried about, although it doesn't look good considering the way we'd started. It is damaging my pre-season prediction in terms of that, so I'm a wee bit worried, and maybe that's going to come out a bit wrong, But I'm not overly worried. We should be beating the garbage teams, no questions asked, and hopefully winning more of the games against the better teams than than losing them. But like I say, every team goes through a slump, and let's just hope it doesn't last much longer. We can then find a form again and go on a good run.
It's nice. I think that's a very healthy way of looking at it, because there's a lot of people that are really, really losing their marbles about this run that we're on. And I can understand why, because it's not just the losses to the good teams where, you take on the chin and it's a bit of an anomaly and a bit weird, but you kind of, you suck it up and you wait until it's crunch time, and that's when you really start counting who you beat. But these kind of beaten teams you should be beating, who are also depleted, it's almost just the nature of the losses, which is a bit hard to take sometimes. But as you say, I think it's a slump. It is what it is. It's the middle of January. We're not even halfway through the season. So it's just one of those things. A lot of it seems to be people trying to pick holes in like the rotations that Steve Nash is using and effort and things like that. But I think more to your point, it's just like, it's so early. It's still so early in the season. What, we 30 odd games in? Steve Nash even still said, we're still playing. We're still tinkering. We need to know what we've got. And unfortunately, he's kind of stretched that over the whole season so far. And it's just one of those things that although he does throw up some random combinations of, like, there will be combinations that don't have any space in, for example, or combinations that there's no one on there to get rebounds, or there's no one on there that can get a bucket outside James Harden, so he's got to just ISO all the time, and then James Harden will get pissed off because he's not getting any calls, and instead of really getting hard to the basket, he'll just kind of really, really try and chase these calls and just throw the ball up and like penetrate and throw the ball up into the air and just get pissed off. So that kind of thing is annoying. Like, some of the nature of the losses have been annoying. But yeah, I said right at the beginning of the season, like, I'm gonna reserve judgment till New Year about what this team is and what we are. Weirdly enough, since it's turned around to going over to the new year, they've taken a nosedive. So I'm going to kind of readdress that and say that, it's still a work in progress. But, even as we're still figuring things out, and even though KD and Harden are still kind of playing too many minutes, it's just one of those things that it's a process. And I don't want to say we want to trust the process, because those are awful words in a basketball context. But we just got to see where we are closer to the time. You got to bear in mind that this team was built on the presumption that Kyrie Irving could play, and on the presumption that Joe Harris, who before this season has been incredibly, incredibly resilient, has been out for 6 to 8 weeks. He's going to be out for. So that's got us, all these kind of bit pieces that we've got that have all been defensively minded were brought in because we had 100% more offensive juggernauts than we've been playing with the rest of the season. So, it's annoying that, there are people that can't shoot and all these kinds of things, but they're all been thrust into positions they didn't bank on playing. So sit tight, Nets fans. It's going to be rough, but good times will come, I'm sure. I'm going to stay on Joe Harris and just get what your thoughts are on this team without Joe.
I mean, it's worrying that we're still without him. The kind of initial thing was, I think it was 4 to 8 weeks that it was given, and if I recall correctly, things looked quite positive early on, but then Steve Nash had said something that he's maybe still a couple of weeks away. You know what that means in Nets world? You're as well not even staying that could be,
that's 8 to 10, isn't it?
For all we know. Yeah, it's glaringly obvious how much we're missing Joe. It's the spacing, not to mention obviously his shooting ability and just the points he can bring, but it's the spacing. There's so many. Most games you'll see the tweets with no spacing, and like you said, so Nash is getting battered for his rotations, and obviously can understand why some folk are unhappy. You've got to also ask the question, what else can he do when he's had 8 or 9 guys available to him? You can only kind of do what you can. Joe's spell out, I think, has certainly shown many doubters just how important he is to the team. Maybe made folk back down a little bit after kind of being all on top of him after that kind of shocking playoff performances. But yeah, I'd seen a few different tweets. Nets Daily highlighted that we were the league best 3-point shooting team of 39% with him. Without him, we're now the 28th best with our 3-point shot percentage having dipped to 31%. And friend of the show, Jack Manuel, pointed out that, well, he highlighted the impact of Harris's absence on his teammates. KD's 3-point shot has fallen by 20%. Harden's 15%. Patty Mills just shy of 10%. So the team is really suffering from not having Joe Harris here. And it's just, with him having been out for what seems so long, and then obviously by the time he is eventually back and ramped up, it will seem even longer. It genuinely will feel like a brand new player in this team because it's been out for that long. There's been a few changes. Kyrie's now back again. So, yeah, we've still not actually seen this Nets team at full strength. It was like when we initially could barely see the big three together last season. We're still yet to see this best Nets team. So I'm really excited for Joe to be back. Hopefully, everyone else can kind of stay fit, and then we can have that best starting five out there. And then I think, like you're saying, you're reserving judgment until about January. Then we can kind of make real judgments on this team, because at the moment we're just kind of assuming things based on kind of history or what we've seen so far, and that's what you can do. So hopefully Joe's back soon and we can get this team back on track.
Yeah, it's one of them. It sounds like we're kind of Nets apologists on this podcast a lot, but I really do think that, you know, Kyrie and Joe Harris coming back to this team would solve so many of our problems. I mean, as much as we've just waxed lyrical about Kessler Edwards, there's been a lot of people going, get Kessler more minutes. And if your answer is Kessler Edwards on this team, you're asking the wrong questions. I think it's just like, we just need, we need to be back to full strength, and then we can see what we are. We need to be fully manned. And when we are, not if we are, when we are, things will start getting better. I want to park it there for negatives. I've had enough talking about the negatives, because even though it's been not the best part of our season so far, there still has been some positives. And yeah, there's still some light at the chinks and golden little diamonds in the rough from the fallout of this month we've been away. But yeah, what have you been happy about from this last Nets team, last few games?
Nicholas Claxton ending LeBron James's career. Yeah, I don't know how else you could put this. This was absolute filth. This was the most aggressive, Clax, you've got to give him credit. He done really well to just take advantage of Carmelo Anthony just kind of forgetting to mark him. Just completely peeled away. No one's watching. Harden puts it up. Perfect height for Claxton. And Claxton slammed it down right on LeBron. And yeah, it was, a thing of beauty. Historically speaking, it's LeBron slamming it down rather than being slammed on. And it was just seeing Clax, a young up-and-coming guy, doing that against kind of, well, he's still one of the best players in the league, but an older guy kind of on his way out of the league, maybe a few years away. It was kind of just like one of those, wow. Like there was also the Ja Morant kind of dunk a few years ago. Anthony Edwards has had some big posters, and it's just, you see these young guys doing this on seasoned veterans, and there's just something nice about seeing that happen. The Nets have had some guys dunked on, and you're like, oh dear. But it is, when you see a young guy do that to one of these like best players, it's a feel-good kind of moment, no matter what team it is. I'm a big advocate of seeing young talent get given kind of big moments. We obviously spoke quite in depth about Cam Thomas getting his moment to shine, and this was just Clax, doing what he can do best. It was a thing of beauty. If you've somehow not seen it, just get on YouTube and watch it on repeat, and you'll end up with a smile on your face. It's
pretty beautiful. I'm all agree with you. It's just like, so Clax had a bit of a rocky start to the season. I think he was kind of obviously had started the first few games and played really badly by his standards. Then was off for a while with some illness, and now he's back. Now he's ditched the blonde in his hair, and he's back to his natural color, and he's back nice, fit, and healthy. He's dunking on goats and all this kind of stuff, and he's been on a really, really good run of games. And I know he said that sort of one moment on Christmas Day of all days for it to happen as well. Like, it was just absolutely beautiful to see. And yeah, you're quite right. He's in it's great to see like the young lads getting this as well, because he's sort of getting his props around the league as well. I remember chatting to the other guys that, run UK fan accounts for NBA pages. And I'm like, am I just being, too net centric, or does everyone else kind of realize how good Nick Claxton is? And they're like, nah, we know all about Nick Claxton. So he's always been a good kind of switchy defender, but now he's kind of putting this offensive sort of competency together. And his obviously chemistry with James Harden has been incredible. And just looking at the stats, although Nick Claxton he's not going to score you 20 points a game. He's almost where DeAndre Jordan was last year, where all he does is dunk and all this kind of stuff. Although he does pepper in some kind of jump shots recently, which has been really good. He's just over 9 points a game on average, but he's shooting 65%. So incredibly efficient. Got the best effective field goal percentage on the team, which you'd expect from a big man that's just dunking and doing lobs and stuff. But yeah, it just feels like he's really developing. I think, it's that kind of third year where, he's not expected that he's going to be bouncing in and around Long Island anymore. He's, a good part of this team. The free throw shooting could be a lot better. I think, where he's going to be kind of playing more minutes and getting a bit more attention and taking that bigger sort of role within this Nets team, he's going to want to get those free throw numbers up a bit more. But yeah, if we're talking positives, the uptick in Nick Claxton's play has been absolutely great. From people, finding themselves in this league to former MVPs trying to find their former form, if that's even good English. I wanted to chat about the positives of James Harden, remembering that he's James Harden, and just his back-to-back LA games. Obviously, dropping 39 points in a double-double over the Clippers. We've already touched on how good he was in that Lakers game, where he had, 36, was it? 36-point triple-double. When Harden's been good, he's been good, right?
Yeah, he has. Harden's kind of form between Christmas Day and New Year's Day was Houston Harden. That was Harden at his finest. Just obviously, he's kind of been a guy who's been a bit up and down. He's been inconsistent throughout the season, and a player that's annoyed a lot of people because he's not maybe performing to the level we've kind of come to expect from James Harden. James Harden still, even in these games where he's not performing to that level, he's still outperforming most of your NBA players, and most people would be happy with the stat lines he can put up, even when he's not on his game. But James Harden, yeah, must have been averaging about 35 points over that kind of weak spell. And yeah, the 39-point game against the Clippers was masterful. I don't know what other word I could use for that. With KD out due to health and safety protocols, no Kyrie, we needed Harden to turn on Houston Harden mode, and he done just that. We seen him take so many shots. He took 25, which was more than any other player did on their own in the game. Shot 60% from the field, and yeah, like you say, he scored 34 later on against the Clippers in another game, but unfortunately that one couldn't carry us on to victory. But yeah, like I say, his form between Christmas and New Year was absolutely ridiculous. Since then, we've kind of seen his form maybe not plateau, because I mean, if you plateau at kind of averaging 35 points a game, that's not bad. It's kind of taken a dip, and that it's kind of back to, it's got a wee bit inconsistent, but I don't know if that's due to him just having to play a lot more, and it was just going to be a case of he was going to get burnt out. And let's be honest, you can't expect anyone to keep up 35 points on average a night for too long. But yeah, that spell of games might possibly be, maybe other than KD's really good start, that and that Harden spell in that kind of week are definitely up there as the kind of best short stints of form that I think we'll see from a Nets player this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in that game, I think he's only the 10th player in league history with 20,000 points, 5,000 rebounds, and 6,000 assists. And he's the only net ever with 35 points and 15 assists in a single game, which when you think about it, that's 2K my player numbers, isn't it? That's just, you've absolutely owned the game on that. You're red hot. And it's just so incredibly frustrating because he's so good and you just wish you saw it a bit more often. But I've spotted people talking about like how it might still be the hamstring that he was suffering with in the playoffs, and how long that is of an injury to really recover from, and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's, he's still kind of feeling the health and safety protocols thing. Who knows? Maybe he's just really loves Christmas, so he was super happy and all that kind of stuff. But we'd love to see it more, but we'll make do with seeing flashes of it, I suppose. And that's it. So I think that's hit the main headlines, I think, from the time that we've been away for the past month or so. Obviously, we're recording just after taking an L on the road to Portland. It was the second day of a back-to-back. We went on to overtime in the previous game, and then having to travel and play a game on the next night. I think it was always going to be a bit of a tall task to win that second game. But looking ahead, we don't play again until Thursday morning UK time, 3 a.m., where we travel to Chicago and play the Red Hot Bulls. Obviously, they're top of the East at the moment, having an incredible season. Before flying back to the Clays the following day, Friday, 1:30 a.m. to play OKC, and then got one rest day, and then back in on Sunday at the Clays playing the Pelicans. How do you think what are you looking for in those 3 games? And then how do you think we'll fare?
I want to see us get out of our current rut. The Bulls, I mean, yeah, this is not a game you try and get out of a rut out of. It's going to be very difficult. Like you say, they're now top of the East. They've taken advantage of our slump and are in red hot form. They've already beaten us twice this season. And yeah, we know what they're capable of. Hopefully it's third time lucky and we can win and then kind of carry that form into the games later on in the week. But let's not kid ourselves. The Bulls are not going to be easy opposition whatsoever. We need to win this one in order to cut the gap between ourselves and them. I think we're sitting 2 games behind at the moment. So yeah, got to win that if you want to get that kind of first seed back. And then all going well, we win that one. Although I'm going to honest, I can't see it just given how our form's been, especially against the really big teams. But yeah, I don't think there's any excuse not to beat both the Thunder and the Pelicans, 2 of the worst teams in the league. We could be in the worst form ever, and I'd still expect us to beat these 2. When you've got KD and Harden available to you, you should be beating these 2. Yeah, I'm going to say 2-1 for this week. I'd love to say 3-0 because typically we're quite good at predicting things that we'd learned up until we stopped. But yeah, I'll say 2-1. Bulls will hand us our third loss against them, but then we'll bounce back, batter both the Thunder and Pelicans, and then that'll start a good run.
I could not agree more, my friend. I think although we'll have Kyrie back in the fray, you assume that he's going to play, Thursday morning against the Bulls. Weirdly late tip-off. I think it's even like 10 p.m. tip-off local time, so 3 a.m. UK time, as we say. But so Kyrie should be back. We should be somewhat full strength. Obviously still without Joe, but like you say, what is it? The definition of madness is trying the same thing twice and expecting different results. We're not beating these big teams. And the Chicago Bulls are on a mad one. So I do expect us to take the L on that one, unfortunately. But like you say, back at home, back at the Clees, back in Brooklyn, and we're playing 2 of the most bottom feeder clubs in the league. So if we don't beat these, then Nets Twitter is not going to be a very nice place to be. But we do have a friendly face in those 2 games. We've got friend of the pod, friend of the show, and everyone's friend Elliot from Hooping the Luton is going to be in attendance. He's going to be at Barclays Center for the OKC and Pelicans games. So he's going to be cheering everyone on our behalf. As Cammy says, we're going to get back to the BK's UK pick'em when Aiden's back. But that's kind of it. Anything else you wanted to touch on before we get out of here, Cammy?
Not that I can think of. Just glad to be back podding Nets. Hopefully next time we're podding, we're celebrating some things, and there's no mention of negatives. It's all going to be positive.
That's it. Good vibes only. Nice one. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks to Cammy as ever, and all of you guys for listening and watching along with us. If you like what we do, the best way you can help us out is to like, rate, review the podcast, subscribe to us on YouTube. We're nearly 100 subs, so that'd be really, really cool. A nice little milestone for 2022. And just share this episode on social media. Chat to us on socials as well. We're always good down to chat nets. And that's it. We'll see you next week for another episode. It's lovely to be back, and take it easy.